When is the new year, first month, and the Passover, and everything else associated with those feast days or those celebrated, set apart, holy days, according to the Torah, which is Genesis to Deuteronomy, among books such as Jubilees, Jasher. Okay, why is it important to know this? It is a day to observe when the Almighty Creator made Israel a nation. Israelites were given a new year from the one they were previously following, especially when they lived in Egypt or in the land of Canaan. Also, they left the Egyptian nation in haste, so the week was named Unleavened Bread, Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we will see and we will know how to determine. So, just by reading the Bible itself, how would we know? So we will have to know certain things, that the calendar that is used today is named the Gregorian calendar, which follows 365 days per year. So the year is a cycle. You have week cycle, year cycle, and then we have seasons. So we use the same week cycle as 52 weeks in a year. We use 52 complete weeks. The Gregorian calendar has 52 weeks, and then there's a couple days for the next week. So you do the math and you'll see. If you have 365 days, as opposed to what we use 364 days, 7 times 52 is 364. 7 times 53 or 52 will give you 364 plus 1 day, which will be beginning of the next week. So in actuality, they have 53 weeks, 52 complete, and 1 day of the next week, which will go into the new year. So let us examine the word and through the historic events using chronology to know when the days are and why they are important to us. Us meaning the children of the Most High. So things that the Almighty Creator has made for us to use for signs, days, and years. So when we go to the first book called Genesis, or Bereshit, in chapter 1, verse 14, it says, "And the Almighty said, Let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So we see they'll be for signs, for seasons, and for days and for years. So we have agriculture, that's one. Certain times of the year when fruits and vegetables grow and you can be harvest. Days for set apart days, and years. We use years to tell our birthdays and time. And we'll see as you read through the scripture, for example, in the Medo-Babylonian captivity, they were sent there for 70 years, mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. So they'll know exactly how to tell time from this. So this is the basis of telling time. So we use the sun, moon, and stars. Verse 16, "And the Almighty made 2 great lights, the great light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and he set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." 18, "And to rule over the day and over the night, and divide the light from the darkness. And the Almighty saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the first day." So the evening, when it's beginning to get dark, that's the beginning of next day. Okay, New Year's Day. So we are living in a land that celebrate their New Year's in a month they call January, which comes named after the Greek goddess Janus. This is just to give you an example, and it starts in the winter months where we live. If you live in the Western Hemisphere, say in New York, the weather will be colder. These are some verses in the Torah, which is Genesis to Deuteronomy, that mentions the new month the New Year, the month, and the Passover. So these are New Year facts for the children of Israel coming out of captivity, said by the Almighty through Moses. He says in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 to 2. 1. And the Almighty Creator spoke unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. To find out the season and date, we'll need the longitude and latitude of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So we have some things now to figure out. When is this day? How would we know? And what sign would we use? We go to Exodus chapter 34, verse 18. The feast of unleavened bread shall you keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, in the time of the month of Abib. For the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. So that's why they celebrated this day, started that day, and for the week of unleavened bread, it's that the day they left in haste. And I may cover it further on in this lesson. Okay, year. It is the Hebrew word is Shanan. The Strong's number we use is 8141, and it means Shanan, a year, whole age. Whole means like a cycle, long, old, or yearly. It's a cycle of what they consider a year. So if a year is 365 days, if a year is 364, if you have a business and you have your business every year you pay taxes. We have a year you pay taxes in America. It's the fiscal year, and it is held every year April 15th. And your birth year, every year 365 days later, or 364, depends on how you celebrate it, it'll be another cycle of your birth date. Okay, so we use it to gauge and measure time. It's a revolution so the description of it is a year is as a revolution of time, to repeat, to do again. So every year when you come to that point, you start over. What is Passover? Passover, Strong's number 6453. The Hebrew pronunciation is Pishak. Pishak means Passover. It means an offering. Okay, so it's an offering, and it's a festival that we do, that is done in the scripture. And the Passover offering is what they had to do at the time. Now let's go to Numbers chapter 9, verse 1 to 5. And the Almighty Creator spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month. This day came you out in the month of Abib. Exodus 13, verse 4. Of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. Appointed sign, time, place of a solemn assembly, congregation, set a solemn feast. Verse 3. In the 14th day of this month at evening, okay, remember we talk about evening and the morning of the next day, you shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall you keep it. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at evening in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Almighty Creator commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. It's Numbers chapter 9, 1 to 5. Before the month of Abib, there is a season called the winter season. And winter meaning Shethav, Sethav, Strong's number 5638, from an unused root meaning dark season. And it's a harvest time. So in the warmer climate, they would have time for certain fruits to harvest. So that was crop gathering by the implication. So, for example, if you live in the Caribbean, as opposed to if you live in Canada, In March, you still have snow up north. Where in the Caribbean, you have tropical weather year round. So the seed, but it was still harvest season then. Now in the 14th day of the first month at evening, the Almighty Passover began. And on the 15th day at the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto the Most High. 7 days you must eat the unleavened bread. That's Leviticus 23 verse 5. Unleavened bread is bread without any leaven in it or yeast to make it rise, because they left Egypt in haste quickly. Observe Deuteronomy 16:1. I'm going to read Deuteronomy 16 verse 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Almighty your strength. For the month of Abib, Almighty your strength brought you forth out of Egypt by night. Nehemiah chapter 2 verse 1. These are all verses referencing the Passover. And it came to pass in the month of Nisan, that's the Babylonian word for Abib, which we use today will be about March. In the 20th year of Xerxes, the king, this is the Medo-Persian captivity. We must know chronology to understand and get the truth. Xerxes, the king, that wine was given before him, and I took the wine and gave it to the king. Now I have not been before time sad in his presence. Now I just wanted to show that the Nisan is that particular month of Abib, or what we call today March. So what is month? Strong's number 2320. The Hebrew pronunciation is Kodesh. Kodesh means new moon and new season. Understanding our moon in its various, different phases, at a different time of the day on Earth, called a new moon. Every month, the moon rotates around the Earth, and the Earth is rotating once around the sun in the same direction. When the Earth is between the moon and the sun, we will see a full moon, and it will appear. Now, this is when the lunar eclipse may occur. If the Earth casts a shadow on the moon, about 2 weeks later, the moon will have revolved until it between the Earth and the sun. The side facing away from us is lit up. This is called a new moon because the darkness on the side facing us, there's nothing to see because it's not illuminating. So then when there's a new moon, you don't see a moon. The moon casts a shadow upon the Earth, then you see a solar eclipse. Now the moon have different phases. Moon travels, through the 8 phases, and it's called a lunar cycle. The waxing crescent occurs as the moon approaches the first quarter. The first quarter occurs on the way to become a full, and when the half of the moon is visible. Waxing gibbous occurs on the way to a full moon when more than half of the moon is visible. A full moon occurs when the entire shape of the moon is illuminated. The waning gibbous occurs after a full moon. The last quarter occurs after waning gibbous, when the half of the moon is visible. The waning crescent is the crescent phase after the last quarter moon. The new moon occurs when there's no light is reflected by the moon. And when the new moon phase, the moon is not visible. It can be detected by noting that the visible absence of the stars that it blocks. During a new moon, sometimes enough light is reflected off the surface of the Earth, and the shape of the moon is faintly, you can see a little bit of it. Now when the moon is going from a new to a full moon, you can see the crescent illumination on the right side of the grown of the half moon. It gets larger and it's called a gibbous moon, and then it becomes full. The more it gets lit, we say the moon is waxing. So there's waxing and waning. Now the full moon, the right side, if you're watching it, starts to disappear, and the moon goes through another gibbous cycle. It becomes a half moon, then it's on the left side and reduces to a left crescent, and finally becoming invisible as it's going into the new moon phase. And you see less of the light, you say the moon is waning. Now during the crescent and gibbous cycles and stages, you see the moon during the daylight hours. That's some things that we need to look out for. So this is an important part to know, and we need to know what the moon and the new moons are, so we'll be able to tell our particular seasons. It could be new moon or a month, a monthly or new moon. So a new moon or a new month. And you can have a new moon, you're not going to see the new moon unless it's a full moon. So you will need to understand how the moon cycle works. But at the same time, to keep it in what we're talking about, I'm going to continue reading here about the word month can either be referenced to the moon, appearance in the sky, visible to the eye, or a time period of days, or which we call yom, equaling the Hebrew month for the season. So Hebrew had 12 months for their season, and each month had particular days. Hebrew days, which is called yoms. Strong's number 3117. Yom means a day. Here goes the meaning. It means age, always, continual, daily, birth, each, and today. So yom is referencing more of the daylight, but it still encompasses the night and the day, the evening and the morning. So we say 24 hours make a day, but you have more light. In the warmer periods, you'll have more sunlight, and in the colder periods, you'll have more darkness. But they're still going to equal 24 hours. So they have what we call seasons, which are, we'll look on the equinoxes that we have. We have 4 seasons, and there's 4 equinoxes. So we have the spring, the summer, the winter, the fall, and the winter. So twice a year, we have equal amounts of light and day. Seasons. But one more thing with the day. From the unused root meaning hot, or as the warm days, warm hours, from sunrise to sunset. So it's a space of time. So again, summertime you'll have more light, and in the wintertime you have more darkness. So a season, Strong's number 4150, Hebrew meaning moed. And moed, it means appointed time, place, or meeting. So there was a season for everything, as you read in Ecclesiastes. Abib, it means fresh, young ears, also what we call a Canaanite name for the first month of the Hebrew calendar. So something is happening during the first month because the Canaanite was an agriculture society. The Canaanite deity name was Baal, which is agriculture deity. Now the Hebrew months coincide with the seasons from agriculture. There are 4 seasons per Hebrew year, or Israelite year. This year, the 2018 AD, the spring equinox will be in March, and it should be, to be correct, it may be, I believe it's March 19th. It should be Monday, March 19th. Now we can check, and I'll tell you in a minute how to check, where to go to find out. The Enoch calendar is the way we gauge it. Also, the Enoch calendar is an ancient calendar described in a pseudepigraphical book of Enoch, the book of Enoch. Not the book, The Secrets of Enoch, but the book of Enoch. It divides the years into 4 seasons, exactly 13 weeks each. So if you do the math, you have 4 seasons times 13 weeks. Each such season consists of 2 30-day months, following by one 31-day month. And the 31st day ends the season. So that the Enoch year consists of exactly 364 days. And that's the even number. So you always have the same every particular year. You can count using the Gregorian calendar. Say we started March 20th. We'll count from March 20th, 364 days. And next year, you should be at March 19th. Because we use 364, the Gregorian calendar uses 365. So every year, we're very consistent. The calendar has to make adjustments with leap years and all these other things. So the beginning of our new year starts around spring, which is the vernal equinox. Again, in Torah, it is written. How to find out, right? So let's go to Jubilees chapter. Jubilees is a book. It's called The Little Genesis. You can find this book online, or you can order it, and they have the PDF version of this book online. Jubilees chapter 6, verse 30 to 32. From 30 to verse 32. And all the days of the commandment will be 252 weeks of days. And these will make the entire year complete. This is engraven and ordained on the heavenly tablets. 52 weeks. And there is no neglecting this commandment for a single year or from year to year. and to command you, the children of Israel, that they observe the years according to this reckoning 364 days, and these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its day and from its feast, for everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feast. Jubilees chapter 6, 30 to 32. Because if we throw up one day, if your New Year's is off, every other day is going to be off. If your New Year's is off, every other day will be off. Because you count, the first day is a New Year, you count 14 days, then you get the Passover, then 10 days you get, you do 7 days you get the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then 49 days, and then other days, you got other days that coincide. So we use numbers, days. That's how we will find out. If you want to know the time, what time it is, you can go to Naval Observatory, and the longitude is 33 degrees and latitude of 28 at Mount Sinai. And when you go on there, you put in the longitude and latitude, and it'll tell you exactly what time the equinox is for this particular year. If we follow the current calendar, which is the lunar, we follow the moon, the Gregorian calendars, this will cause the children of Israel to be in error according to the book of Jubilees, according to the book of Enoch. And all the children of Israel will forget. I'm reading right now, Jubilees chapter 6, 34 to 38. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the path of years, and will forget the new moons, seasons, Shabbats, and they will go wrong as to all the order of years. For I know, verse 35, for I know, and from henceforth will I declare it unto thee, and it is not of my own devising. For the book lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the division of days is ordained, lest they forget the feast of the covenant and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, or the heathens, after their error and after their ignorance. And that's what we walking towards today by not following the proper days. Verse 36, for there will be those who will surely make an observation of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons and come in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order, and make an abominable day the day of testimony, an unclean day the day of feast day, and they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy. They will go wrong as the months and Shabbats and feasts and jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to thee, that you may testify to them. For after thy death thy children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the new moons and seasons and Shabbats and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. Jubilees chapter 6, 34 to 38. So we know that they have changed the times and the dates as is written in the book of Daniel. Daniel was in the end of the Babylonian captivity and the beginning of the Medo-Persian captivity. That is chronological order of captivities. Chronology is very important. In Daniel chapter 7 verse 25 to 28 it says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the division of time. But, 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominions, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. 27, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Almighty, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. That's Daniel chapter 7 verse 25 to 28. And this is those children, these repentant Israelites then and now. There are days which they call Yom. Sunday, the day that they call Sunday, in which we'll say the first day, is called Yom Rishon. Monday is called Yom Shani, which is the second day. Tuesday is called Yom Shalishi, it's the third day. Wednesday is Yom Revi, which is the fourth day. Thursday is called Yom Kamishi, which is the fifth day. Friday, which is called Preparation Day, Yom Hashishi, which is the sixth day. And Saturday is called Shabbat, or we call Rest Day. Now, the month of Abib, what is that? Strong's number 24. Abib, that means fresh young ears, also a Canaanite name for the first month of the Hebrew calendar, the Israelite calendar. An example for its budding effect by sunlight cycle. So the light have a cycle. So every year at a certain time, these plants will start to bud. Let us use the cannabis plant or marijuana. It is a photo period plant. It needs sunlight to trigger certain enzymes so it to be released, which means the amount of light received each day decides when the plant starts to flowering or to making buds. So we'll know how much light it needs for the photo period of cannabis, marijuana plants need to grow and start budding, so you get, that good harvest day. Another thing is barley. Barley is just another form of budding, which comes from eastern part of Africa, and barley has certain growing habits. So it has these three kernels that form a node, and it has a two-headed row and a single kernel and each node. So some barley requires a cold climate, but in the winter the barley must be planted so that seedling will be exposed to the cold. And then when it gets warmer, it will start to bud. And this is during the time of the equinox, or when the weather starts to change in that month of Abib. So our month starts every year at the same time. So in the springtime, for example, the barley does not require exposure till winter. And it can grow in spring. So that's when it starts budding. Again, let's read Exodus 13, verse 4. And the Almighty, 13:1 actually, I'm sorry. Exodus 13:1. And the Almighty Creator spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month. This is the day you come out of the month of Abib. And the second year, they were out to come out of the land of Egypt, saying, so after he made that saying that they need to come out of the land. Exodus chapter 13, verse 4. Exodus 13, verse 4. This day come you out of the month Abib, and it shall be when the Almighty shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, which he swore unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, and there you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat. Verse 6, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and the seventh day shall be a feast unto the Almighty. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen in thee, neither shall there be leaven seen in thee in all thy quarters. And you shall show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which Almighty did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign upon thee, upon thy hand, and for the memorial between thy eyes. That means keep it in your head, in your memory, that the Almighty law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath he brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in a season from year to year. So that's Exodus 13, 4 to 10. Okay, so we see that these things has been inspired and commanded for the children of Israel to follow. Okay. Now I'm not going to get into the doings of the Passover per se, but we have to know when it's done. And I'll do another lesson on what the requirement of Passover, because there are requirement for Passover and there's requirement for the feasts, all the feasts. You know, if you're having a party, and I say I'm having a party in Jamaica, and you can't keep the party anywhere else but in Jamaica, and I'm gonna have ITEL food, or I'm gonna have, you know, vegan food, or I'm having something, and I have my people's gonna be preparing it. Who prepares our food according to the script? Who prepares in the tabernacle? We're gonna have this party in Jamaica. We're gonna have it as some brethren's house, Brother Joe. We're having it at Joe's house. In Joe's house, so we're gonna have this Passover at a certain place in somebody's house. He's gonna have the Levites, Most High is gonna have the Levites prepare the food, right? We'll show you that. It doesn't mean we cannot observe it. We're supposed to observe it always, but doing it, there's a particular place and systems, and we'll show that through scripture, because there are some who do not study scripture, but they go off of vain sayings. They don't have no facts to show, and I don't like to reason like that. So the month of Abib, the meaning basically is first, the Hebrew Israelites processes were based on agriculture. We were agricultural people. We know how to plant. We know how to tell signs, seasons by the stars and everything else. All of the biblical metaphors reference agriculture: seed, plant, and harvest, seasons. Examples are seed, sow, plant, sheep, shepherd, etc. So all of our metaphors are based on agriculture: shepherd, sheep, lamb, all these things, okay, of the environment. So Strong's number for the barley is 8184. Sierra means barley. And the Abib ears, green corn, not maize. So it's not maize, which is found mainly in the western hemisphere in Mexico. They have maize. Okay, so I'm not going to read into that a little more. We're going to go to Abib again. I read it before because it's very important. Fresh, young ears, also Canaanite name for the first month of the Hebrew calendar. And this is very important. And so the month, the Moed, Abib, Moed, an appointed time, place for meeting, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof shall you keep it. Numbers chapter 9 verse 1 to 5. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel that they shall keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at the evening in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that was written by the Almighty Creator, commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. So they did follow this. Now the confusion is that the works of the adversary and changing the dates and times and laws, this will disrupt the Sabbats. Here's some things. Hebrew year has 364 days of darkness and light. 364 days. And then it starts over again. So if you were even to start, which you're not supposed to do, if you start with January 1st in the Gregorian calendar, you count 364 days, you're going to be a day short every year. And they're going to come up a day later. We're not starting there. Now, a leap year, a Gregorian leap year is 366 days, has no effect on the Hebrew 52 week, 7 day per week cycle of 364 days. Our calendar, the Hebrew calendar, uses the Enoch calendar of days, 12 months, which equal a total of 364 days per year. Now the moon is for agriculture season also. So let's not say we're using this for days, years, okay, to tell. Okay. Each season has 91 days. Each season has 3 months. Each season has 13 weeks. There are 4 seasons per year. Okay. So let's go into the book of Enoch. The Enoch calendar is an ancient calendar described in the pseudepigrapha book of Enoch. It divides the years into 4 seasons, exactly 13 weeks. Each such season consists of 2 30-day months followed by one 31 month, and the 31st day ended each season, so that the Enoch calendar year consists of 364 days. The beginning of the new year starts at spring vernal equinox. Equinox. It's a noun word that tells us that when the sun has equal amounts of the spring equinox, equal amount of light and day. Equal amount. So if it comes up at 7 o'clock in the AM, it'll go down 7 o'clock PM. Then let's go to Enoch. I'm going to read Enoch chapter 71, 31 to 35. It says, "Then the sun goes up at that time from the second gate as it sets in the second gate in the west, but returns to the east, proceeding by the first gate for 31 days, and sets in the west in the first gate, and at the period that night it lengthened as much again as the day. It is 12 parts precisely, while the day is part 6. The sun has thus completed its beginning, and the second time goes around from these beginnings." That's Enoch chapter 71, 31 to 35. Now, the time or date, twice a year, you're going to get equal amount of light and day, because the cycle of the earth, it's not a complete circle. So springtime, you're going to have equal amounts of light and day. Summertime, you're going to have a lot more light than day. And then fall time, you're going to have back to equal lights and day. And then winter time, you're going to have what? More night than day. And then the cycle goes around again. Okay? So the 6-month equinox, then the sun goes from the 5th gate as it sets in the 5th gates of the west, and rising in the 4th gate for 31 days, and accounts for its sign setting in the west. At that period, the day is made equal with the night, and the beginning and being equal with it, the night becomes 9 parts, and the day 9 parts. That's Enoch 71, chapter 71, verse 24 to 25. Another term for equinoctial point. So again, our Hebrew calendar is seasons for agriculture, and there's 4 seasons per year. So this year, 2018 AD, because we had a 2018 BC. That's when the Greco-Romans changed it. I guess the 2017 was before Common Era, BCE, or before Christ, as they say. And then the days or the years went all the way down from 2000, 1000, all the way down 500, all the way down to 0, or year 1, and then they came up with AD. It means Auto Domini, year of our Lord. That's when they usher in their Christ. The first millennium or years or part of man was run by people of color, from what you see. And then when they ushered in their time period, it seems like on a linear scale, from the time of the Christ came, a new era was ushered in. Now, Enoch calendar is, again, it's in the pseudepigrapha. I will have an illustration on the screen to show the sun cycle around and the moon, and actually the earth revolving around the sun on a 91-degree axis. Okay, so it's leaning at a 91-degree axis. So in the summertime, the earth is it further away from the sun or closer? If you said it's further away, you are right. If you're running around a track, and the person on the inside and the person on the outside, who finished first? The one on the inside. Because so the duration of time, you have less time on the inside. When you're on the outside, you have more time, and it's tilt back, and you get more sunlight in the warmer seasons as the earth revolves around the sun. And then you have the moon revolving around the earth, and it takes 29 days So let's read this for the ending of the lesson. It's a sad day at some point when we realize that we were following the wrong information, but then it'll bring us joy at one point. I'm going to read Lamentation chapter 1 verse 4. The ways of Zion do mourn, because none come to the solemn feast. All her gates are desolate, her priests sign, her virgins are afflicted, and she is in bitterness. Lamentations chapter 1 verse 4. We try to do our best in captivity. We live in a land of our captors, as pertaining to if we all consider ourselves the children of Israel. It says in the book of Hosea and Samuel 5:21, obedience is greater than sacrifice. So the Almighty is looking for obedience. Yes, we need to observe these days. And there's some things we cannot do according to the time and place and the things necessary that's required to make the feast and the celebration, because the celebration is for all of Israel. And if they had to do it, they had to do it in the land, as we see in a few scriptures, which I will read. I read Jubilees 6. I'm going to read from 22:29. For I have written in the book of the first law, in that which I have written for you, that you should celebrate it in this season, one day in the year, and I explain to thee its sacrifices, that the children of Israel should remember and should celebrate it throughout their generation in this month, one day in every year. And on the new moon of the first month, the new moon of the first month, on the new moon of the fourth month, and on the new moon of the seventh month, and then the new moon of the 10th month, are the days of remembrance and the days of seasons in the fourth division of year. These are written and ordained in the testimony forever. Verse 24, and Noah ordained them for him at the feast of generations forever, so that they have become thereby a memorial unto him. Verse 25, and on the new moon of the first month he was bidden to make for himself an ark, and on that day the earth became dry, and he opened the ark and saw the earth. Verse 26, and on the new moon of the fourth month the mouths of the depths of the abyss beneath were closed. And on the new moon of the seventh month, all the mouths of the abyss of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend onto them. Verse 27, and on the new moon on the 10th day, the tops of the mountain were seen, and Noah was glad. And on this account he ordained them for himself as feast for memorial forever, and thus were they ordained. Okay, so we see that these things were set in place. Let me read verse 29. And I placed them on the heavenly tablets. Each had 13 weeks from one to another, past their memorial, from the first to the second, and from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. And all the days of thy commandment will be 52 weeks of days, and these will make the entire year complete. This is engraven and ordained on the heavenly tablets. So we need no more to fight to find out what needs to be done. It's a simple mathematics. You can do it. When the Almighty put the heavens and put the earth and the sun and the moon in place, they follow their commandments, and they have not moved, and they cannot be moved unless he moved them. So from the time of the beginning until now, the sun has been doing what it's supposed to do. The earth has been rotating on its rotation. Just that there are, according to Job chapter 9 verse 24, the earth has been handed over to the wicked to try to change dates and times and to cause confusion. So we will know next that there are requirements for feasts according to the Almighty, and their priestly requirements. I will give you these, and I will follow up on the next video. Leviticus 23 verse 20, Leviticus 23, 25, 26, 36, and 37. Priestly only ones who can offer up to the Almighty Creator. There is fire on the Shabbats, but by the priest. Numbers chapter 28, 9 to 10. Read that. To figure out when the other holy days are kept, we must start from our new year, the Hebrew New Year, using the current calendar, Gregorian 365 day, and you start from that new month, which is their new year starts. Their new year starts in the month of January, and ours is going to start during the equinox time, the vernal equinox, spring equinox, which comes in the month of Abib, which is generally known as March. And I already gave you the information where to find it. You can go to timeanddate.com. Gotta be careful how accurate that is. You cannot use unless you're living in the longitude and latitude of Egypt somewhere. You cannot use the longitude and latitude of America, the Western Hemisphere, because you'll be off a little bit. All right. So I pray that this information was acceptable. And if need be, if there's any questions, you can leave some comments. And if I cannot answer it now, I will answer it in due time.